Hi there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelby and today I'm going to be doing my weekly reading wrap-up from January 28th until today, February 3rd. Can't believe it's already February. I'm really excited to share with you all the books that I read this past week. I just started signing up to use Edelweiss and NetGalley to review copies in advance, and I did get approved for quite a few, so I have a few this week that I read and reviewed, and some of them were even on my most anticipated books of 2019. So I'm super excited. This week I read a total of 8 books. I read 2 historical fiction, I think 3 thrillers or 4 thrillers or mystery type of books, and then a couple of women's fiction. I'm going to get right into it just because I have a lot to talk about, and I'll link them all down below as well as my Goodreads if you guys want to be my friends. So the first book I have to talk about is Fallen by Karen Slaughter. This is the 5th book in the Will Trent series. I did read this from the library on my ebook just because these copies are a little bit on the older side. This one is about the agent Faith Mitchell. She has her mother, who used to be a police officer, watch her daughter while she is at work. And she comes home one day and her daughter is in a shed. Her mother is nowhere to be found. There's a dead body in her mother's house and 2 men who appear to be part of gangs. And she ends up killing those men because they're armed and making the situation dangerous. But she has no idea where her mother is. So basically the whole book is about trying to figure out where Faith's mother is, and Will is looking into it because it is part of a drug investigation, because Faith's mother got retired from the force years earlier because her narcotics division was taking money in exchange for, I think, turning a blind eye. And so they're wondering if it has anything to do with that. And it turns out that Faith's mother has a lot of secrets, and you learn about those secrets. Also, Will and Sarah Linton start to have more of a relationship, and so you get to start to see that. And I found this pretty good. I'm not as much a fan of books like that in regard to like the drug situation. I'm not a huge fan of like gang violence books. I just have a hard time following all of the different drug terminology and things like that. I much prefer, like, I don't know, like murder cases and things like that. So I gave it 3.5 stars. I still love the writing of Karen Slaughter, but it wasn't my favorite of this series, probably my least favorite so far. And then after that, I did a review of We Must Be Brave by Frances Liarde. It comes out in February, so it comes out on the 26th of this month, and I read this through Edelweiss. And this is about a woman named Ellen during World War II. She has just gotten married, and she's, I think, like 18 or something, and she discovers a young girl about 4 or 5 years old who was left on the bus by her mother, and her mother is nowhere in sight. So she takes the girl, and her name is Pamela, and she takes her into her home, and although she doesn't have any children of her own, she takes care of Pamela. And it turns out that the mother has died in a bombing at their hotel, so she seems like an orphan. Well, after 3 years, Pamela gets taken by her birth father to her birth family, and Ellen is kind of left heartbroken because she's fallen in love with this child that she took care of through the war. And so it is about her love that she forms for Pamela, and it spans over several decades after their separation. She wants to stay in touch with Pamela, and another woman comes into her life, another little girl, and it reminds her of her love for Pamela, and so she has to decide if she's going to do things differently than she did with Pamela, or what she's going to do. And the ending was pretty bittersweet. There is a reunion. I don't want to say too much, but it was a sweet book. I gave it 3 stars. It definitely wasn't a favorite World War II book. It didn't give a lot of the setting. It was more about their relationship, and I found it extremely slow going, which was a bummer for me. But it was a nice story about how a mother loves their child no matter if they are their birth child or not, and I found that really touching. But it's definitely not my favorite, and I probably wouldn't have pre-ordered it if I had known like what it was about and things like that. And then after that, I read The Perfect Couple by Ellen Hildebrand. This came out, I believe, in either 2017 or 2018. It's one of her newer books. And this is more of a kind of mystery versus just women's fiction, and it was so good. This is about a family on Nantucket. So there's a couple, Celeste and Benji. They're due to be married. It's July. And they seem like the absolute perfect couple. And on the morning of their wedding, the maid of honor is found dead in like a body of water right outside where they're staying, and so the wedding is canceled, and basically detectives are pulled in to see why this woman drowned or how she died and what were the circumstances around her death. And as they're investigating, so many secrets come out about this family. The maid of honor was sleeping with a married man. The bride had her bags packed to leave on the morning of the wedding. The groomsman, one of the groomsmen, he was planning to leave the morning of as well. And the father of the groom was lying about who he's sharing his bed with. And it is just a ton of family drama, absolutely amazing. And I loved kind of unwinding all of these secrets that they were holding. Really, really good. And I'd love to see more of these more like mystery books from Ellen Hildebrand. I thought it was so good, and I liked it, I think, most of all out of all the books I've read by her so far. This is my third, and I gave this one 5 stars. And then after that, I read The Mother-in-Law by Sally Hepworth. I actually have this one pre-ordered, but I got to read it through NetGalley. It comes out on April 23rd. And this is, I believe, kind of a mystery. To me, it's kind of a mystery suspense. It wasn't like a thriller. This is about a woman named Lucy. She marries a man named Ollie, and her mother died when she was like 13. So when she was getting married to Ollie, she was really excited because she finally would have a mother-in-law and someone that she could be close to. Well, Ollie's mother and father, their name are Diana and Tom. Diana is a lot colder than Lucy was expecting, and their relationship kind of gets off to a rocky start, even though she loves Tom. He's super warm and friendly. And it kind of goes about, you know, their relationship as mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, and you see the past and present. And past, you kind of see what the relationship was like, and present, Tom has already passed away, and Diana has just passed away, and cops are telling Lucy and Ollie that she's dead. And it seems to be a suicide, but then detectives start coming to their house, and it seems that it wasn't a suicide, and the cancer that she said she had was nowhere in sight. So she didn't have cancer. It seemed she was murdered. Someone staged her suicide, and the only person that seems to have a motive is Lucy. But if she didn't do it, then who could have caused Diana's death? So you kind of see both scenarios unfold. You see the relationship from start leading up to present day, and you see kind of present day them unfolding what happened to Diana. So this was a really good story. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've never read a Sally Hepworth before, even though I have a couple of her books, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. She is an Australian author, I believe, and it was set in Australia, so I thought that was cool. And I gave it 4.25 stars. It wasn't quite a 4.5, but it was definitely more than a 4-star read. And then after that, I read The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. I was really excited to read this because I read Final Girls either in December or last month, and I loved it. So I was super excited to pick this one up. This one came out summer of 2018, I believe. I wanted to read this soon because Lock Every Door is coming out by Riley Sager this year, and I wanted to have this read ahead of time. And this is about a girl named Emma, and when she was 13 years old, she was at a summer camp, and her 3 roommates went missing one night, and they were never found, and it has haunted her for 15 years. And she is now an artist, and she paints forests, and there were forests around the camp, so it really reminds her of her time at that camp. And hidden within all her paintings are the 3 girls that went missing. She hasn't been able to forget about them, and it's been 15 years. Well, suddenly one day she gets contacted by the director of the camp. It had been shut down, and she wants to reopen it, and she wants Emma to return and teach painting to the girls who are at the camp. So against her better judgment, she agrees to go to the camp for closure, maybe to figure out what happened to her friends and her roommates. And she goes, and while she's there, she just uncovers some crazy stuff about the family that runs the camp, about her friends that she shared, you know, the cabin with. And this was an amazing thriller. You're seeing present time, her uncovering all these things, and then you're seeing a diary of her roommate. You're seeing just like the past, how it's told. And it was so good. I really enjoyed this. It kept me on the edge of my seat, and I loved the game in it, Two Truths and a Lie. It's kind of based around this teenage game And I thought it was really good. I didn't like it as much as Final Girls, which I think was Riley Sager's first book, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think I'll like his next publication as well. So I gave this one 4.5 stars. And then after that, I read another thriller. It is called Too Close by Natalie Daniels. I got this through Idolize, and it is not published until July 30th, so a little while's off, but I would highly recommend it. I thought it was really good. It is about a girl named Connie, and she is a mother. She's in her 40s, I believe, and something bad happened because she is in an insane institution, so mental institution, and she has clearly a lot of issues. She is on drugs, and her hair is falling out, and she's always like seeing therapists, and that something bad happened to her. Well, she starts discussing an event that happened, and it had to do with a friend of hers that she met 6 years prior named Ness. Her and Ness met in a playground. Their kids were playing in it. They both have kids the same ages. Ness had just moved to the neighborhood with her wife, and so Ness's family and Connie's family became friends, and the kids became friends, and for 6 years they were so intertwined in their life. You get to experience how unhealthy this friendship was and how too close they were to each other, and it actually caused destruction in the end and put Connie in this psych ward. And so you get to kind of see the unraveling of her mind and of this life. And also, meanwhile, while she's in the mental department, she is talking to a Dr. Robinson, and she's her psychiatrist, and you get to see how Connie gets in her psychiatrist's mind, and you see into the psychiatrist's life and kind of see how the two women mesh together. So I thought this was a really good book. I think it's Natalie Daniels' premiere novel, and I gave it 4 stars. And then after that, I read a really exciting book. It's by Sarah Morgan called One Summer in Paris. This comes out April 9th, so in a couple of months. And I read The Christmas Sisters in December, and I loved it. It was my first Sarah Morgan, so I was really excited to get to review One Summer in Paris. This I got through NetGalley. It is about 2 women. One is Grace. She's in her 40s, and she's celebrating her 25th wedding anniversary with her husband. To treat him, she bought them tickets to go to France for 1 month to Paris, and as a vacation to treat them for 25 years of marriage. Well, while they're at their anniversary dinner, he doesn't want to go on the trip, and he says he wants a divorce, and he's been cheating on her. So she doesn't know what to do, but she decides to go to Paris alone and take that trip for herself and do something for herself. And then the second woman is Audrey. She is just graduating from high school. Her mother is an alcoholic, so she feels really trapped in her life, but she has been saving up all her money for years, working a job on the weekends to be able to go abroad. So she chooses Paris. She's currently in London, whereas Grace is in the US, and they basically both meet by chance in Paris, and they form up a friendship. Grace is a teacher. She teaches French to students in the US, so she teaches Audrey French. Audrey works at a bookstore that Grace's grandmother told her about, so they have that in common. And Grace is reminded of her daughter with Audrey because Audrey's the same age as Grace's daughter. And Audrey forms a little relationship with the other boy that's working at the bookshop, and it's kind of the story of self-discovery for both women. Even though they're decades apart in age, they both are finding themselves, and they have similar upbringing, so they are more alike than they could have imagined. And I thought this story was really sweet. I gave it 4 stars. I didn't like it as much as The Christmas Sisters, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I like how I felt so connected to the characters, and I felt like I really knew them, so I highly recommend that one. And then the last one that I read this week was Before We Were Yours by Lisa Wingate. I've heard so many great things about this. It is a very sad story. I had really no idea what it was about when I had gotten it, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. This is about a woman named Rill Foss. It starts when she's about 12 years old. She is one of like 5 siblings. It was in the Great Depression, 1939. Her and her family lived on a little shanty boat on the river in Tennessee, and her mother was in labor, and the dad took her to the hospital, and she was left with her 4 siblings, I believe, in the boat. And these men come in the night and take her and her siblings and say they're going to take them to the parents, so she assumes they're going to the hospital, but instead they go to this home, and it is an orphanage, and they are being adopted out to people. And so it is actually based off of a true story, not this particular family, but it's based off of a real person and a real scenario. So there was a home, a children's home, where this woman, she was basically taking children without parents' permission, forging paperwork, and abusing them in a house in the Tennessee Children's Home Society or something like that, and abusing them, and then having really large adoption fees and collecting the cash and selling the kids basically to families who could pay for them in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And so it's about the Foss children. And then you get to see their tragic upbringing, and you fast forward to present day, and there is a girl named Avery in South Carolina, and she is a senator's daughter. And when she's at an event at an old folks home, a woman comes up to her named May and thinks she is knows her, and it turns out it has some relation to do with Avery's grandmother, and Avery starts digging into her grandmother's past and her family's past and realizes there's a huge secret, and it has to do with the Foss family, and there is a relation to this Tennessee Children's Home. And it was a really, really good story. I wouldn't say that Avery's story was that compelling, but Rill, who turns out to be May, her story is so compelling, and it really drew me in, and my heart went out to that family, and it's so sad that that's actually true. But I really did enjoy it, and I gave this one 4.5 stars. So those are all the books that I read this week. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys have been reading, and I'll see you guys on my next one. Bye.